the number of children in state care who are being harmed, that has increased as well. So we've now got, if we look at the overall stats for the last year, the 14% reduction in abuse or harm in state care residences, and you've put out a press release celebrating that achievement.
So residences, so that's in home, in a residence, in a state residence looking after. It's probably, Chewie, what in the olden days they almost called borstal. Don't know if it's quite as black and white as that, but it's
It is.
Yeah, okay. So it's almost like it's like a detention rather than we're helping you for your mental health. So they're down by 3 individuals. Our numbers are down. But overall, as Jack goes on to say,
the 14% reduction in abuse or harm in state care residences, and you've put out a press release celebrating that achievement. But at the same time, for kids in the wider state care system, reports of abuse have increased to record levels. The number of children reported as being abused has also increased to record levels.
Are you speaking to reports of concern?
No, I'm talking to the reports of abuse.
Yeah.
So on your watch, a 14% reduction in abuse or harm in state care residences, but at the same time, abuse in the overall system has increased to record levels, and the number of children being abused has increased to record levels. So where would I find that in your press release?
I've spoken to what being in care means, but now we need to speak to what that harm means and break down what that harm is. So return to home is the most dangerous time for a young person to go home. So Oranga Tamariki keeps that custody, if that makes sense.
Sorry, just for a moment, can you answer my question?
I'm getting there.
No, my question was, why didn't you mention that in the press release? The overall abuse had reached record levels. You didn't mention that.
I think it's actually important to acknowledge when things are going well, whilst also things may not necessarily be going well across the whole.
But they're not going well. I think that's the point Jack's making, but they're not going well. Because the 14%, this is why it's percentiles can always put things out. 3 people. Go back and watch Interview Yourself, whānau, and you'll see what I'm talking about with the 3 people. So the number of people who were not offended against to get that 14% was 3 individual people. But everywhere else, like outside of those borstals, outside of those residences, it's record levels, which means it's not going well. So when the minister says we have to celebrate things going well, this is not it. We're not looking at that right now.
When things are going well, whilst also things may not necessarily be going well across the whole board.
Right. But you didn't acknowledge that, though, did you?
I did in the House, in Parliament.
But you didn't in your press release.
No, because my press release was specifically about residents.
About the good stats, yeah.
About residents.
But not about the overall picture, which
so
showed
harm
record
in
abuse.
care has risen by 4%.
Yeah.
Can I speak to that harm and what that harm is so that people have an understanding of what that is?
Yes, you can.
Because 60% of the harm that happens to children in care doesn't happen at the hands of the caregivers or a person that is caring for those children. It could be anything from schoolyard bullying to a perfect stranger attacking a kid walking to school, which is outside of the control of Oranga Tamariki.
Yeah.
Now that we know that...
She does say it could be, though. That could's doing quite a lot of heavy lifting. I mean, unless you've got stats that say these kids, 20% of them were attacked on the way to school, it could be means in the way they report data, yeah, it could be any one of those things. But is it those things? She doesn't address that. We don't know.
60% are harmed outside of their caregivers and the people caring for them. It's our job to work with other agencies, to work with education around bullying in school, and to work in those areas of prevention of harm in communities.
Right. So you were criticised by the Children's Commissioner and the Independent Children's Monitor for cherry-picking the numbers, right? For focusing on that good stat, while at the same time ignoring in your press releases the concerning stat that showed that harm and abuse in state care had just reached record levels in New Zealand. But when you were asked about it by News Talk ZB, you said the statistics were measuring different things. Quote, the harm I'm talking about, the decrease in residences, is serious harm, you said. But for the stats that showed recorded abuse in the wider system reaching record levels, you said, quote, that harm could be anything, low level, high level. So where in Oranga Tamariki's annual report does it distinguish between the seriousness of harm recorded in state residences versus the seriousness of harm and abuse recorded in wider state care?
Yeah, that interview that I had that morning, my understanding of what we were speaking to was a bit different, so my apologies. What I thought we were speaking to was the reports of concern and the issues that had risen in the area of reports of concern. I was speaking to the harm reduction within youth justice residences, and I might have got a bit confused about what I was speaking to that morning.
To be totally clear, though, and we can. It's good that you're saying.
So interesting response, eh? So she's mea culpaing that she got it wrong. Now, part of me kind of goes, this is all we ask of our politicians, that when they're wrong, they step up and say, I got it wrong. But you can also ask the question, in the position of power and influence that she's in, should she not actually understand better what they're talking about when they ask the question around harm? If there are 2 different things, should she not get it? Or is it fair enough to say everyone will go, oh, sorry, I didn't realise that's what you're meaning? Because she does mea culpa here, but she still was referencing she's saying now, referencing the wrong thing. Would she have come out referencing that wrong statement if Jack hadn't asked her about it, or would it just been left to float across the internet and across the radio station airwaves, Chewie?
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking, well, this is actually, I mean, not too bad. It's someone acknowledging a mistake.
Yeah.
Which I always want a politician to be able to do that, because the alternative is you try and cover it up. Now, the bad part of this is the cherry picking of stats and putting it out in a social media post of yay us, look what we've done. She's kind of gone, oh no, I did correct that in the House.
Who watches the House?
Didn't correct what you, yeah, exactly. How many people are watching what's going on in the House versus who saw it on Facebook and just saw the post and are now cheering,
but not even
that.
Not even just saw it, then read the report by a journalist who currently doesn't have enough time to look into it properly. So they just regurgitated the press release points without delving any deeper, because I did see this heading last week. I didn't see any journalists pushing back against it. So that journalist who's written that piece for Stuff, or for whoever not picking on Stuff, has done it based on and they've phoned up asking her a few questions. Yep, cool, thank you. They've written their article. They haven't been watching the House to pick up the other part, which hasn't been mentioned in the press release. So then it goes from the press release to the media, from the media to the people, then it's truth. And unless you are as well prepared as Jack Tame, you don't know what else to push back on. And not many are in that world of mainstream media interviewing places.
Yeah, so then it becomes a question of personal integrity. And I know I might be hoping for a little bit too much than what's on offer here, but I would give her full credit if we saw that sign of integrity, and we haven't seen it. Like her background as someone that has been through the foster system and that sort of thing, she knows this from her own lived experience that this is important. And I realise that she's on a team that does not give a fuck about these kids.
Yeah. But
I wish that her experience would enable a little bit of empathy to go, oh, Jesus, it's not just about the stats and just putting out a post on Facebook. These are real fucking people.
Yeah. All right.
And I don't see that from her.
This has got about 60 seconds.
Because we can clear this up.
My apologies.
But you were very clearly asked,
Yeah.
are you cherry picking the numbers? And you confidently asserted that they measure different things. You even
measure different things.
You even gave an example of the kinds of low level, your words, minor incidents that you said were being recorded in the overall stats. Yep. And this is what you said, quote, I guess it's recordings, like within the MSAs, where we had 2 recordings of harm. One was a cut finger and one was sunburn. Yep. But on page 130 of its report, under definitions of abuse, Oranga Tamariki clearly says that all abuse reported in that report under the official stats has to be deliberate. So the only way the cut finger would be recorded is if it were a stabbing.